All right, what's good in the hood? In this video, I'm going to be doing a tier list breaking down which fighters I want to see the most compete in RAF. I tried to get as many as I could think of, but if you enjoyed this video, give me a like. And if you think I missed any key ones, and I know I missed one already as I do this video, but we can't do remakes, drop a comment below of who you think you want to see next in RAF. And go check them out because they actually just announced a big fight. Colby Covington's return. He's going to be competing against Dillion Danis, of all people. Regardless of that's going to be a competitive match, I don't think it will be. It's going to be a damn fun presser. But let's jump into it. First thing is first. The Black Beast, Derek Lewis. You're probably wondering, why the hell is this guy on here? He's on here simply because I think if you know Derek Lewis and you know Just Get Up in the form of fighting jiu-jitsu and how he's historically shown that, I think Derek Lewis is like the classic case of he's a 50-50. He's either going to go out there and like somehow actually put on a show and fucking get double legs and push outs and this and that and actually be somewhat athletic, or is he going to be a fat fuck like he, frankly did in his last fight. And if regardless if he even does anything pertaining to getting a point in his match, he's going to be damn entertaining at the presser. Probably shitting on wrestling, calling it like gay. I used to wrestle, so it is by all means from gay. But you get my point. Moving on. I'm bobbing and weaving. I'm going to have to condense this. Blanchfield, we believe in equality. We want to represent men and women on these tier lists. Plus, Blanchfield is, one of my faves. If she ever sees this, give me your number. But no, she's regardless of my my thoughts. She's a standout wrestler. That's like obviously her biggest base in MMA, and along with her jiu-jitsu. For the most part, outside of fighting Marion Ferrot, I think that's how you say the French woman's name. She gets pretty good takedowns. She gets trips. She gets throws. She ain't too shabby, and like I said, she has a wrestling base. She ain't bad look, and so I think it would be a fun little thing. And it seems like she's kind of in a stagnant position where it's really unclear if she's going to get a title shot. Why not be active and go out there and like I said, do some wrestling. All right, moving on. Sean Brady. Sean Brady is just like an absolute. He's a turtleback, man. And sure, he didn't look the best when he got smoked by Michael Morales. And as a man who invested in some collectibles, some cards, his stock really went down after I bought it. ... But no, he's an all around. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he has offensive takedowns. He's shown in his fights, and I just think that sure in UFC he's now starting to show that he's a little undersized for welterweight. But this man is like super stocky, and if you know wrestling, being that like stocky little bastard, it does pay its dividends. I mean, being lanky also helps too, but I'd love to just like, I don't know, see what this guy can do and how hard it would be to get him taken down. And maybe if he pulls a little bit of jiu-jitsu, if he gets taken down. Cough, cough, ... All right, moving on. Kamaru Usman. We haven't seen a lot of this guy. Like I said, he made a return after a hiatus. Did the damn thing against Joaquin Buckley, who also actually competed in RAF recently and didn't look that good. But Usman, one of the best wrestlers of all time, welterweight, UFC in general. Takedown defense is incredibly high. The only guys I can think of that took him down were obviously Chimaev, and that was on short notice, moving up a weight class. Leon Edwards caught him. Colby was pretty close at times. That's really it. I can't think of anyone else that's taken him down. So incredible takedown defense. That's incredibly valuable if you're going to go over to RAF and compete against legit wrestlers. But he himself has shown against Mr. Buckley that he's got some offensive capability. My only concern why I put him in C is that A, he's a little older. B, I feel like he's just not going to do it because he's waiting out to get that Islam fight. And C, he like doesn't have knees. I mean, he's pretty much admitted it. And sure, he showed up well again in his last fight, but I mean, those knees just I just don't have any faith that knee sleeves are gonna be able, knee pads are gonna be able to carry him through a really grueling match. So let's move on. And again, in the sake of equality, as I bob and weave these, Kayla Harrison, she's actually, well, her background's judo, but she's Olympian, and she definitely has some wrestling capability, and she's probably one of the most like stocky Brock Lesnar-esque, just juggernauts across all the women. So, of course, she has to take the crown as someone that should be featured. And sure, she doesn't have a neck right now. She has been beheaded, but she should be on the return. And let's be real, she doesn't have many more fights in the UFC anyway. And if they are, they're going to be very infrequent. She's got Man Nunes, maybe Valentina. She should do RAF on the, assuming the neck, those neck stitches hold up well. All right, moving on to B tier, the bad boys. Gamrot, stock got dropped incredibly with his loss to Charles Oliveira, but nonetheless, go watch some of his past fights, specifically Arman Shurikin. I think that arguably is one of the most entertaining 25 minutes of nonstop scrambles that you'll ever see. That alone makes me want to see him go out there because he's just a dog. I mean, again, Charles Oliveira, put a stamp on him, but he's at this point one of the GOATs after his smushing of Max Holloway. But yeah, Gamrot is he's just a unit. He's a fellow Pole like myself, so I have to put him as a representation just for the sake of the motherland. Moving on, this one's kind of like out of left field, but Paulo Costa, the reason why I put him on there is because, let's be real, he's got the little bit of bodybuilding Chad-esque background, this and that, but he is an absolute tank. I mean, Sean Bray is a tank, but he's kind of stocky and it's more in his back. Paulo Costa is just a tank everywhere. I can't test how big his legs are, but upper massive, head massive, legs for the most part, at least they're long and seem to be pretty muscular. And if you go watch his fight with, like, let's say like Yoel Romero, he's got good takedown defense. And I think a lot of that just because he's kind of like a weight bully and it was always bigger than all of his opponents. But then go back and watch his, he had like years back where he would just do some wrestling with like Logan Paul. And that is not a credible name to be comparing. But Logan Paul, did some wrestling in his home state back in the day. And Paulo Costa looked like he kind of knew what he was doing when it came to scrambles. If he got compromised position, someone got behind him, this or that. I just think it'd be very, very entertaining him just rapping all about the secret juice and this and that. But I feel like also just like he's probably going to lose against most of these wrestlers, whoever they book him against, UFC or otherwise. But I think it would be a good scrap, and it would prolong beyond the first round. And I think he would get some push out takedowns just due to his size and his it seems to be his better awareness of how to use his frame and all that. And we'll see more obviously when he goes to light heavyweight, see what he looks like on that secret juice. All right, Charlie Hall is going to wrap up the B tiers. I mean, this is really going off recency bias. If this man just butchered Max Holloway, by no means an elite wrestler, but he had like an 87% takedown defense and he ragdolled this man. And he goes into that fight and it just reconfirms that he is not just a jiu-jitsu pole guard, wannabe biatch. He's got a pretty good offensive arsenal. And I think a lot of it pays to the fact that he's pretty big, obviously, for his weight class, but he's got that very lanky frame that, again, as a guy who has shit, but I still have wrestling experience. Like, those guys are very annoying where it's like he's got that reach. He can take shots from a long distance away. His legs are real long, so once he gets kind of hold of you, he can really drive you through. And then, like I said, in case of wrestling, there's no cage, so you'll get points regardless if you get the takedown as long as you push them out. Arman Shurikin was the victim of that. But yeah, it'd be really fun, and I don't know. I think it would just be like, he'd be also very good at scrambling too. I think he's good, even though you can't pull guard and this and that. Like, again, I just feel like he'd be a dog like Gamrot, but the difference between him and Gamrot is that he fucking smoked Gamrot. All right, moving on. The elusive A tier boys. Peter Yan, kind of like a wild card, but I predicted this man to beat Merab, and I kind of predicted that he was going to hold his own against wrestling. And he outdid even my wildest expectations. This is a guy that took down Merab, who himself is now competing against RAF. And Merab is a killer wrestler, as we've already seen. Not maybe the most skilled, but he's a workhorse, and he has unlimited cardio. And we found that Peter Yan, when he's healthy and motivated, he is Merab's, daddy. But no, it'd be pretty entertaining. He's Russian. He's a wrestler. I don't really know his true background. I think he's just if we're going to be honest, I feel like he just has just raw skill that he acquired over the years because he had to acquire it because he wanted to do MMA. But yeah, he's the machine, man. He would actually, I feel like, have a chance if he got past the first round. He could actually recognize, I'm fighting a guy that's only going to do ankle picks. I'm fighting a guy that's only going to run doubles. And he might actually be able to survive and actually hold himself against, let alone if he got the chance to just fight like a UFC guy, maybe run it back with him and Sterling. Now that Sterling debuted, that would be kind of fun. Finally get that win back. All right, moving on. Islam. We've already seen a lot of footage of actually Islam wrestling at his gym. He's competing against some, I believe, like high school athletes, this and that. So this isn't anything new, and obviously he does a lot of wrestling himself in the UFC. That's his bread and butter, even as he develops more of his striking. But he's always, touted his own wrestling and the fact that he thinks he could beat like Jordan Burroughs. His boy Daniel Cormier, DC, seemed to have shut that down. And I would agree with DC too. I don't know what he's talking about. But I'd say run it. I mean, Islam, like I said, top 3, probably biggest superstar, top 4 in the UFC. He fights pretty infrequently, and obviously it seems like he's always dealing with some sort of ailment after his fights. Maybe that's just a testament to how tough those Dagestani Caucasus Habib run camps are. But regardless, I mean, he takes so much time in between fights. If the UFC could greenlight this, which I assume they should be able to, run him against someone, like I said, like a Jordan Burroughs is pretty much retired now, my understanding. Like, run against Jordan Burroughs, run him against a real high-level Olympian wrestler, and let's actually see how high his ceiling is. I mean, he's talked that talk. Let's see him walk the walk. All right, moving on. Chimaev, hands down, most dominant wrestler on the roster. Second to none. Maybe that's a testament to middleweight not really having any serious wrestlers. But this guy's a beast, and he's now filling out his frame, and he's walking around, presumably, like I said, that low 2s because he wants to go to light heavyweight now. He's a beast. He's scary. We saw him actually do a grappling match against was it Jack Hermanson, who that's actually his base, and he clobbered Jack Hermanson. That was like years back. Pretty scary stuff. I think he'd be in like 11-0 or something, 11-1. Didn't get taken down, stopped any sort of threats that did come his way, and then he was getting all sorts of creative takedowns. Like he was a kid in a candy store. The real fun would be with him is if he actually fought a guy that was a legitimate wrestler, is what would happen if that guy survived. Well, I won't say survive, but it's going to go past a round or two or the first 2 minutes of the round. I'd be very intrigued to see how Chimaev holds up. Again, that's what we always fear, is that's the biggest issue with him is cardio. And I can attest, wrestling for 2 minutes, I wanted to shoot myself. And sure, I had asthma, and probably medically was not fit at times to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's fucking brutal. And this guy carries a lot of frame, a lot of mass on him, a lot of muscle, and that stuff fucking, it's a double-edged sword. Fucking, it's great when you want to maul someone, but the moment that guy can survive or actually challenge you back, those muscles filled with blood and all that, it ain't fun. The 30 seconds wherever they have between those wrestling rounds is not enough to recover your cardio, let alone let those muscles cool down. Long story short, I want to see him get challenged. I want to see him get taken down, and it's not going to kill his credentials at all, I think, because he's honestly admitted that. He has said that he doesn't refute the fact that Bo Nickel, let's say, and that's actually the matchup now that if we're doing fancy booking, him versus Bo, because we're never going to see that in MMA at the way things are going, and the fact this guy's probably moving up to light heavyweight by year's end. We're not seeing that blood feud, that America versus Caucasus region. However, he's admitted Bo is probably the better standout, freestyle, etc. wrestler, but he's a better, MMA wrestler. But I don't know. I feel like Chimaev would actually put a good running on Bo. And I think that's just a testament to the fact that Bo trains MMA now, and thus he's not a pure wrestler anymore and doesn't purely train it as much. But yeah, there's some fun matchups. You put this guy against, like I said, any elite wrestler, but run him against some middleweights, middleweights that are chase him, and we'll probably never find him. Last but not least, I have to give the respect out. Odds this will ever happen, 0. I mean, odds of a lot of these guys going in there are probably low to 0. I don't think Chimaev or Islam are moving anytime soon, but I could be wrong. Habib, obviously, mega superstar, whatever. I think I just looked at 40 million. He's catching up on Conor right now, which is kind of bananas. The fact that Conor threw that away, now Habib might be the biggest star currently and probably all time. But regardless, Habib probably equally or more just aggressive mauler than Chimaev. The only difference is Habib was taken out periodically, especially early in his UFC career. But the late end of it, it just felt like this guy was all offense, and not at times the most pretty, but he's just such a bear. Chimaev actually gasses out for one reason or another. I just don't think Habib would ever gas out, and that's why it'd be very intriguing, because I could expect someone to take Habib down, but they're not going to hold him down. And then I feel like eventually he'll be able to get the points back, so he'll drag it out, 3 rounds or whatever in wrestling, and I think he'd break them even in wrestling. And you have to also consider the fact this guy looking thick as hell, no homo, but he's looking big as F in all these training footages when he's coaching Islam, this and that. And I'm just thinking, like, it'd be very entertaining to see this guy, like I said, wrestle at, was it like 200? I don't know what their weight classes are called, but, around, I would assume he'd be competing at like 200, 220, because I doubt he's counting anyway. So it'd be very entertaining. Him at 200, 220, like, put him versus, who could you put? Him versus Chimaev. That would be the dream match. Like, lock that shit in right now. Like, I said you do Islam versus Chimaev at like light, welterweight, middleweight. That's a hypothetical MMA fight. But for a wrestling match, just with the frames alone, Khabib would be so goddamn stocky. But Chimaev would have like limited gas tank and probably wouldn't be able to hold Khabib down. So that's my 2 cents. RAF, they're doing a damn good job. They're getting Dillion Danis versus Colby Covington. Bananas. They got, like I said, they just recruited Merab. Merab's probably not fighting anytime soon. They got Merab versus Henry Cejudo. They seem to be pulling. I don't know how they afford this shit. But if they got the money or some sort of backing, Fox, etc., then throw a good offer against, like I said, some of these big names like Islam, Chimaev, Khabib. I totally mentioned a few, like GSP would be a fun one. Tony Ferguson. They got to do it. And I think UFC seems to have a good relationship with them. Else they wouldn't have even allowed this in the first place. They do block it if they have a fight coming up. But it seems like UFC and RAF have like a pretty good mutual working relationship. So yeah, they should feature a lot more of these guys, just especially up and coming guys. Let's not put them against a UFC vet, this and that. It's just a nice little way to boost their credibility and get more exposure to the fans. And at the end of the day, that helps the business and helps the individual fighter. But let me know what you think in the comments. Who did I miss? Drop a like I said, if you enjoyed this. If you enjoyed me in my red dungeon. It's night over here, so I gotta keep these eyes from all that dirty blue light. But yeah, have some more stuff coming out later this week, so stay tuned and subscribe.